Hey everyone, Reaper here again with another video. This time it's another episode of Crazy Comic Book Prices for the week of March 28th, 2021. So, let's talk about a couple of books, alright? Now, before we get started, as you may have figured out, those of you that keep coming to my channel, I really enjoy filming these videos or talking about this subject because I just think it's so interesting. So a lot of my other things have been put off. I'm going to try to release some of my older videos. Well, not older videos, but the videos that you were used to me making. I'm going to see if I can release some of those on Saturdays every now and then, just to change this up again, because I'm going to be talking about this for a while, these crazy comic book prices, because I think it's so interesting. You know, I think for anybody that's been in this hobby for any length of time, we've seen books go up, we've seen books skyrocket in different periods. But I think now, like none other, we've seen some prices go up, but to such heights over such a short period of time, we really can't compare it with anything else. And I know we've talked about, on this channel, and you probably saw on other channels why that is and all that stuff, and all the virus, and people were at home and no conventions, and all that probably is true. But it's just, I still find it a very interesting topic to do a video on it every week. So let's start up with what I want to talk about this week when it comes to books and some interesting prices and all that. Now, I get a lot of my prices off of eBay. There are plenty of other places to go besides eBay to find, items sold listings. But I go there and I find it really helpful. But there are places like GPA and Heritage and all that stuff. And every now and then I'll have a Heritage price here. But today I'm just going to go over some recent eBay sales from the end of March. Maybe some are from the middle of March to the end of March and so forth. So, the first one I want to talk about is this book right here. Marvel Spotlight number 5. Ghost Rider seems to be, very, very popular now. And I think we all know why. Obviously, there's speculation about him, with Moon Knight and all these other characters. Blade. I mentioned Blade in a couple of videos, right? It seems that Marvel might want to go in the direction of the supernatural. That was one of the questions I said you should ask yourselves when it comes to a Blade movie. It seems that Marvel wants to go in several directions, right? They want to go with outer space and all that other stuff. But I also think that they're experimenting with the supernatural. And I think Blade is a good example of that. So, that being said, I think a lot of people are speculating on Ghost Rider and characters like that. So, as you can see with some of the prices, I kept it up there for a little while. The 7.0 restored book, what do I have here? It went for $1,825. Now, some restored books are picking up. People buying them because they obviously are more affordable. As you know, I have a few restored books in my collection. And it's amazing how many people always say, oh, why would you want a restored book and all that stuff and all those different things. I don't really collect restored books. I get them when it's suitable for me. Everyone else collects differently. But I have noticed that some books, in particular this one, Marvel Spotlight number 5, that's a pretty strong price. 7.0 CBCS, but close to $1,900. That's pretty strong. And I think a lot of people today are buying the restored books, as I was starting to get to, that because they are more affordable. But also I think they believe they could probably remove the restoration, and that may be the case for some books, but this is just a warning that I would give you if that's what your mindset is. And I've talked about this in older videos too. Sometimes when you look at these restored labels and it says small amount of color touch on cover, sometimes a small amount isn't a small amount. You have to think of the cover, as this big piece of paper that might have a couple of little things around it, those little things being little spots of color touch restoration. But when those little spots are removed, right, even though they are little compared to the rest of the cover, even though they are little, removing them may leave holes in the cover, it may detach the cover, and the grade may suffer considerably because of that. It's just not this little black ink filler on the one part of the cover where it could easily be scraped off and that's the end of it. Sometimes with restoration, as you know, the color touch goes right through the cover and it has to be completely cut out, which means it leaves a hole in the cover, or sometimes leaves a part near the staple where this cover becomes detached. So that 7.0 is no longer a 7.0, right? It's not even a 6.5. It may go down to a 5.0. Now you might say to yourselves, well, 5.0 is still a good price to fetch. And it might be. But I'm just saying those are the things you need to think about when it comes to just looking at that label. Small amount of color touch, small amount of glue on the cover. Well, you know, just pay closer attention to that if that's what you plan to do when it comes to removing the restoration. It may affect the value to a point where a return may not be as good if that's what you wanted to do. And the 8.0, let's go to the 8.0. It was a little over $4,000, so it's definitely something. But you know, for the longest time, Ghost Rider and an 8.0, I mean, it was an expensive book. I don't want to make it seem like it was a $100 book, because it certainly wasn't. But for a while, it was, you know, decently affordable. Now it's at that range where it's not so much. But again, another example of a crazy price compared to what it was a year and a half ago, a year ago, so forth. All right, let's move on to the second book. I'm going to talk about 3 books this video. The second book, and this one I think was, you know, again, a lot of these may be expected, but this one I think, you know, especially where X-Men #1 and Giant Size X-Men #1 have gone, it's pretty understandable why this one is going up. So let's take a look at it. Okay, this is the first. I have a couple screenshots of prices. The first one, again, another example of a restored book. A 9.0, again, was probably about $1,500, a little over $1,500, and so for $1,586 or something like that. You know, I don't know if that's a strong price. I think 2-3 years ago, if someone was trying to sell that book for that price, it probably wouldn't get that much. It would probably get maybe $600 or something to that effect. So now that the prices have gone up, people have taken more interest in some of these restored books, and they are now fetching, you know, decent prices for the reasons that I mentioned earlier with the Marvel Spotlight #5 example, or at least that's what I think. I could be wrong. And the 9.0 in this first example, I'll show you another example in another moment, over $4,000. I mean, that's just, I mean, there were so many people, I think, that had at least an 8.0 or a 9.0. I remember from watching older videos in the community that had that book in that grade, and probably paid, if you paid high for it for years ago, it was probably what, $700 at that price? Maybe a little more, maybe a little less, and now it's just thousands of dollars for those that have that grade or higher. That is a premier book in your collection. I think I talked about what I would consider a premier book in my collection from years ago. Well, like X-Men #1 would have been a premier book because it's a few $1,000s. Now that book, X-Men #1, is more than just a few $1,000s. What was a recent sale? I don't have the picture to show you. An X-Men 3.0, the same grade I have, I think sold for over $15,000. That is a crazy price. So let me show you the next example, a couple other prices for this book. All right, another 9.0, a little less, right? This was from I think March 25th, so it's recent, or at least recent at the filming of this video. A little over almost $3,500, and a 6.0, a little over 1,000. So, you know, again, these are books that people are paying attention to because they are important. X-Men '94, I think we all know it's important. It's the first time. It's the first time the new X-Men are in the series, and the series restarted with '94 and had that long successful run of Chris Claremont and a lot of talented artists over the years. You know, from Cockrum to Byrne and so many others. So it seems to be that book would be the third logical step when it comes to getting X-Men books. So I mentioned in a previous video that it's time to probably buy some of those other X-Men books, like a Mr. Sinister and Apocalypse. But I'm starting to see those on the rise. I mean, they're not terribly expensive, and they're probably not books that you want to hold on to. They're probably books that you want to flip when the time is right. But still, if you could get them cheap now, you know, keep the mindset of holding on to them for a while, not just trying to get rid of them too quickly. You know, sell them when the time is right, if those characters show up or are announced to be in a movie. But just you have to be a little patient with some of these books. And the last book I want to talk about in this video is Journey into Mystery 85. You know, we talked about WandaVision raising some books. We have now Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I didn't really talk too much about it. I haven't really watched the show. I really don't have too much interest in that show, to be quite honest. I barely had any interest in WandaVision, you know, honestly. But I know there's some, what was that guy, the U.S. agent? The last name's Walker. I don't remember his first name. I'm not a fan of those characters of that series. But from what I've seen, I think it's the Captain America, the 323. I don't think it's gone up crazy to a crazy price. Okay, it's obviously more than what it was maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, no doubt. But I don't think it's anything that's insane. So I don't know how much, if that's going to change or whatnot. But speaking of series, we can have Loki. I think this summer Loki comes out. So naturally, everyone's gravitating to Journey into Mystery 85. I was fortunate enough to get another copy of that. Well, not a second copy. I sold my original copy a couple years ago, and I purchased one at the end of 2019. Slightly higher than the one I had, but I think is overall better looking. So anyway, here are some of the prices. $4.5, 4K, a 3.0, 3400. And a raw book. I don't know what grade it is, but a little over 2K. Again, about a year and a half ago, those books, probably like a 3.5, 4.0, you could probably get for a little over $1,000, maybe $1,200, maybe $1,300, but usually not much higher than that. Okay, now they're, as you can see, much more than that. Here's another group of recent prices. A 4.5, 5K. Now this is from March 16th, all right? A 2.5, 2,800. Another 2.5, almost 3,000. So I guess a lot of people are believing that Loki is going to be here to stay, or at least for his TV series. Who knows? I'm interested in seeing that one, though. But again, when it comes to getting books that maybe you can make a decent profit on, I would be thinking about characters that are related to Loki. I mean, I know sometimes the series throws you for a loop and introduces characters that you wouldn't expect to show up. But, you know, you should be thinking about what characters are centered around Loki. Or maybe now, at this time, it's a little too late for that. But I did mention you should be doing that when it comes to some X-Men, Daredevil, Blade, of course, Moon Knight. And I think people are, for the most part. But sometimes you just got to keep in mind, you have to be a little patient. So that's the end of this video. Maybe next week I'll have a few more books that we could take a closer look at. But remember, try to be a little patient when you pick up a speculation book. Don't be so quick to try to sell it because you just don't know what's going to be in the next movie or next TV show or whatever. Get them cheap. You don't want to spend too much money. If money is really an issue for you, I don't blame you for that. But you should really be thinking about some other characters. You should be thinking about characters like Adam Warlock. Now, we know that Adam Warlock is fetching a decent amount of money, but I don't think Adam Warlock has reached the level of, like, let's say some of these other characters, like Ghost Rider and Loki, where it's thousands upon thousands of dollars. I mean, unless it's, a 9.0 or something like that, but I still think you can get a decent mid-grade 6.0, 7.0 copy of all those Adam Warlock appearances, the cameo, first as him, first as Adam Warlock, and all these other things. I think they're a few $100s, maybe a little bit more than that. So those are some other things that you should be thinking about, because I think it's only a matter of time before Adam Warlock shows up. You should be thinking about things like that for those of you that want to get these books before they become the examples I gave you in this video. Well, in any event, thanks for watching. And be safe and take care, everybody.